The Constitution is knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. The power to taxes. John Marshall. The law does not expect to defend every act of his life which may be suddenly and without notice alleged against him. John Marshall. An unlimited power, necessarily, a power to destroy, because there is a limit beyond which no institution and no property can bear taxation. The people made the Constitution can unmake it. It is the creature of their will, and lives only by their will. John Marshall. Attended to, endure for ages to come, and, consequently, to be adapted to the various crises of human affairs. John Marshall. The particular phrase of the United States confirms and strengthens the principle, supposed to be essential to all written constitutions, that a law repugnant to the Constitution is void, and that courts, as well as other. It is emphatically the judicial department to say what the law is. John Marshall. I am N. The white people first came, I was already a young woman with breasts. Before the white people came, we did what our hearts wanted. We lived in different places, far apart, and when our hearts wanted to travel, we traveled. We were. The government of the Union is, emphatically, and truly, a government of the people. In form and in substance it emanates from them. Its powers are granted by them, and are to be exercised directly on them, and for their benefit. The Constitution is either law, unchangeable by ordinary means, or it is on a level with ordinary legislative acts, alterable when the legislature shall please to alter it. It is emphatically the province and duty of the judicia. A corporation is an art visible, intangible, and existing only in contemplation of law. John Marshall. The peculiar circumstances render a measure more or less wise, but cannot render it more or less constitutional. John Marshall. Courts are the mere instrument and will nothing. When they are said to exercise a discretion, it is a mere legal discretion, a discretion to be exercised in discerning the course prescribed by law, and, when that is discerned, it is. No political dream of to think of breaking down the lines which separate the states and compounding the American people into one common mass. What is it that makes us their independence in office and manner of appointment? John Marshall. An unlimited power, necessarily, a power to destroy, because there is a limit beyond which no institution and no property can bear taxation. John Marshall. In a free government all become worthless if the government possessed power over the private fortune of every citizen. John Marshall. The law does not expect to defend every act of his life which may be suddenly and without notice alleged against him. John Marshall. The acme of judiciability to look a lawyer straight in the eyes for 2 hours and not hear a damned word he says. John Marshall. The federal government be one of enumerated powers. The principle, that it can exercise only the powers granted to it, is now universally admitted. John Marshall. The particular phrase of the United States confirms and strengthens the principle, supposed to be essential to all written constitutions, that a law repugnant to the Constitution is void, and that courts, as well as other It is emphatically the judicial department to say what the law is. If two laws conflict with each other, the courts must decide on the operation of each. This is of the very essence of judicial duty. John Marshall. I was born on the 1755 in the county of Fauquier, at that time one of the frontier counties of Virginia. My father possessed scarcely any fortune and had received a very limited education, but was a man to whom nature had been boon.